Thought I'd just drop in and
Rise up to the fight. One love, one life for the revolution. Rise up and unite. Woo! Rise up. Rise up and unite.
The United States college soccer program is a breeding ground for talent to be enhanced into potentially semi-professional, professional, the MLS, or even the international team. On Sporting Denver with us today, we have the head coach from DU, Denver University, the Pioneers. Head coach Jamie Franks, welcome to Sporting Denver.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Hey, thanks for checking in with us, Jamie. Hopefully it doesn't rain out there. I know you're a super busy man, but thanks very much, mate.
It's my pleasure. It's just I'm excited to get on and talk some soccer.
Hey, your head coach, obviously, been there for some time. As head coach, what's your current role look like, Jamie?
Just to educate the kids. Obviously in person is more of a challenge with everything that's going on with COVID-19. But, at the end of the day, it's, about educating them. And so there's different silver linings in this. And, there's different approaches that we have, with growing the student athletes as people and as players.
Sure. As maybe a senior or even a junior in high school, and I'm looking at DU, what would I expect as a player in terms of my requirements to make your roster?
Yeah, I think, obviously I got to be a little bit careful with NCAA rules about talking, about particulars.
Sure.
But I think, for any kid, any younger high school age player, it's first and foremost being a good person. And, having a holistic approach to the way that you're developing. And, you're a student athlete. And so there's really three prongs. There's the student aspect to it. And, there's a social aspect of it. And then there's a soccer part. And, I think for a lot of younger players, it has to start with them. It has to start with figuring out what they really want to achieve as a student athlete. And I think too many times, they just don't make value-driven decisions because they're not really sure what their values are. And so that would really be my best advice, is just understand really what you're trying to get out of the student-athlete experience, and then, make sure that the school aligns in all three of those areas.
And obviously balancing that education with the the obvious soccer talent is vital to meet those needs on the education side. Jamie, What have you changed as becoming the head coach, running your program? What have you changed slightly from what was and still is an excellent program when you first came in, Jamie? What have you instigated with your personality?
Yeah, I just think that there's a little, for me, it's about demand. And it's got to come from within the players. And I think the most successful teams that we've had during my 8-9 years here as an assistant and as a head coach, it's always player led. And so, that's a high focus in recruiting the right character kids. And, I think Jeff Hooker and Chad Ashton and Bobby and, everybody else before has just done such a good job of laying the foundation, and we just lay it brick by brick. And, we've only been Division I for, since mid '90s. And so our rise to where we're at as a university, as an athletics program is amazing. And so I'm just trying to leave it better than when I found it.
When did the opportunity arise for you to join the Pioneer coaching program? How did that commence?
Yeah, I think, my whole life, I was aiming to try to be a professional. And I used that sort of ambition, drive, passion of mine in soccer to meet so many friends, to learn so many valuable life lessons, learn what not to do, what to do, what do I value. And I was always an undersized player, and I think the game never really came easy to me. So I had to always think about it a little bit different. And my playing career got cut short, and I always knew I wanted to coach. So I went back to Wake Forest. I was video ops. I was director of ops, and then I was volunteer. And back in 2012, there was an opportunity that arose here at Denver, working for Bobby Muse, who recruited me to Wake Forest as an assistant coach. And
Right.
I jumped on it, and we really started focusing on the character of the kids and recruiting top notch people. And the results then came after.
You mentioned recruiting, and also there are certain criteria, Jamie, that we can't talk about on air. How do you work that system in terms of the recruitment? The US is a big place, and DU is a great school and a great soccer program. How do you operate that sort of nationwide, Jamie?
Yeah, I think it's obviously starts with our backyard here in Colorado, and
Yeah.
the core of the team will always be made up of Colorado kids. They're the ones that wear Denver across their chest, and they're the ones that are most prideful, in the state and the university, and about leaving it in a better place than we found it. And so as long as those are our core guys, our culture should be intact. And, the way that we add people from other parts of the country is just making sure that we're doing our homework on them. In my recruiting experience, as a student athlete myself, I just thought it was interesting some of the conversations I had with coaches who had only made maybe seen me play 2 or 3 times, and I think you're guessing at that point. And so human capital, people, is the most important thing we do. And, recruiting is right at the forefront of that because, if we don't have the right type of student athlete here at the University of Denver, then, we're not going to get the same sort of results.
You've obviously developing from inside out, Colorado, not so much born and bred, but here in Colorado, working that roster. So these young players coming through into that system, you as a young coach, possibly the youngest from what I've read somewhere, how did that feel working with your peers alongside being very young and introduced to those roles and responsibilities very young, Jamie?
Yeah, well, I get older every year, so
Jamie, don't even go down that road, mate.
You just learn. You learn more about who you are and who you're not, and some of the more difficult times or adverse times. That's really where I have found out who I am and what's my coaching style. And I think just being a young coach, I was hired at 28 years old, and I just knew that there was a certain set of character skills that we were going to try to teach the kids. And then, if we recruited the right kids and those 8 character skills were at the forefront of, our teachings and our methodologies, that then, our values would come out. And, having excellence, integrity, grit, and passion, those are words that anybody can say, and those are words that anybody can kind of use. But for us, they mean something specific. And, when we put really good people in the organization and then we hold them accountable for those values, that's when we start to accomplish our goals. And the top of the pyramid is to develop authentic leaders. And I think all of that is always focused on, the game of soccer is just so much bigger than all of us. And there's just so many good life lessons. So we just try to make sure that we're always teaching. And, I love my guys. I love, anybody that's ever been around me knows, how fortunate I am and how fortunate I feel, just to coach the type of kids that I do, and they're unbelievable character. They have the top GPA in the country. They have for 4 of the past 5 years. They're the number one. They're number one in social settings, meaning like they participate at other sports. They do tons and tons of community service efforts, and so we're really looking for somebody that's trying to make the community better, and that's what I take the most pride in.
So the package that you're looking for off the field, going on to the field, what were the foundations on the field that you set to develop your potential, style of play? Winning is a great thing, Jamie, and they have an excellent track record. How did you set those foundations on the field in terms of that style of play and that particular player and enhancing that team?
Yeah, I think Jurgen Klopp always says it, but when you watch Denver play, we want an identity. Regardless of the result, we want people to come to the games and say, wow, their sort of intensity, their sort of reactions, their sort of focus, their collectiveness, that's what separates them. And for me, our thing is this fighting football idea, meaning we're just going to try to play every play. And if it's a throw in, we're going to try to win that throw. And if we don't win that, then we're going to try to, win the goal kick if it's the second ball. And so we just take it, play by play. And, for me, I really just ask the kids if they can control three things: their positioning, their work rate, and their mentality. And it sounds very easy. But a lot of things get in that, in the way. And for us, we're just really, really focused on, controlling the things that you can. And our system of play is blue collar, it's up tempo, and it's effective. And so, I think when you get results, they're just a byproduct of doing the right processes, correct every day.
Sure. Without giving too much away, Jamie, obviously tactically, just in case anybody sees this, do you have a set formation that you work to, with obviously shifting shape tactically on occasions? Do you have a preferred formation to start with?
Yeah, so for me, it's not so much about formations as it is principles of play. We go anywhere from a 4-3-3 to a 3-4-3 to a 4-4-2, some sort of hybrid between those. And I think when you make a sub and, you put a different player on, he can play the same position as somebody prior, but play it way different. And all of a sudden your moments of superiority, are different on the field. And, I think, we're just always trying to find overloads in the games. And so for us, we would really want to play to our strengths, and we want to, play our system of play. And so it's more based off principles than it is system of play. But for me, I really believe, just in some core things about, winning the middle of the field, making sure that you always have cover in the back line, and then making sure that you're asking questions to the other team, that you always have three, across the top of their back line. And so those are the core principles kind of to what we do. And, we obviously have key performance indicators that are tied to that identity, tied to that system. And so,
sure.
For us, whatever can be measured can be fixed. And so we want to make sure that, we're taking measurements 15 minutes, 30 minutes, at halftime, to make sure that, our system of play is coming alive.
As a new player coming in, being selected, privileged to come onto the roster, which is already very, very strong. What does a training program, what does a weekly program look like, either leading up to the game? What would that look like, Jamie?
Yeah, I think everything's based on periodization, and it's a big word that's now in soccer. But the idea behind it is that you can change variables, and the variables are the size of the field, the amount of players, the amount of balls, the amount of rest, the total duration of that session. Those are all factors that lead into a certain output, physical output for the players. And then I think if you even take it one step further, it's like, how many times is your forward, striking the ball towards goal? And there's certain movement patterns, that I think is important, that you're not overloading certain muscles throughout a week. And so, my sports performance team here is one of the best. And I feel really fortunate to have that, because to be honest, I'm just always trying to learn about periodization. I'm always learning how to, try to do it better. But, for us, the guys wake up, they do some heart rate variability training. I think it's really important to have, that for the players, because they can see what sort of habits, make their heart rate go higher, or what, their heart rate go lower. And for us, we're trying to teach them, a holistic approach. And so whenever anybody's anxiety is getting going, it's important to understand that breathing and the way that you, compose yourself is important. So we have breakfast in the locker room every day for the guys. We treat them like pros. We train at 8:30 every morning. And so the guys are in there by 7:15. And, they go through a pretty rigorous screening test to find out where their imbalances are. I think you're starting to see some muscle injuries become less and less in the game, because I think we have more information about how to, properly load them and, how to find their imbalances and what sort of prehab do you need to have. So, we train every day, 8:30 to 10 or so. And then the guys have a quick snack, and then, they lift, or we do leadership development, or we do film. We do all this stuff before noon. So we try to control, every day from about 7 to 11. And then that's when we try to get all of our teaching in. And then there would be a lot of behavioral science that would suggest it's great time then after 2 meals, after 2 workouts, for learning acquisition. So almost all my guys take class from 12 to 4 every day, and then they go back, they eat, they have a little social time, and then they hit the books. And so it's a pretty rigorous schedule for a student athlete, and I know that we ask a lot from them, but I'm not looking for average people. I'm looking for grinders, and I'm looking for people that want to put it in every day.
Sure. 2 sides to the game, on and off the field. Oh, cliche. I get that, Jamie. What, as a coach, is your favorite portion when you're working off the field with the players, whatever that little program or just fun activity may be off the field?
I would say, there's so many, and for us, they translate, right? And I think that's really important to understand. But for us, it's just this self-reflection. It's this mindfulness, about yourself and about your strengths and about your weaknesses, and, just understanding how you impact people. Do you build them up or do you knock them down? And for us, in a 17, 18, 19-year-old, young man's life, to help provide perspective about his strengths and his weaknesses, his communication styles, it's just a life learning process. And so if we can turn that light bulb on, sooner, they're going to be able to acquire more information as time goes on. So
on the field, Jamie, now that could be, out there, it's raining, whatever, on the practice field or in the technical area during a game. What's your favorite part of that, Jamie? Just gives you that, that little boost, that energy, that excitement.
Well, for anybody that knows, I try to build myself in every session. I wasn't good enough to be a pro, so I had to be a coach so I could build myself into the session plan. But it's just playing, it's just having fun. It's just, it's those moments where you feel alive, and it's the moment where you feel like, when that game comes and there's a little bit of nerves before the game, but that your preparation was right, and that you feel confident about your body of work up to that moment right there. Everything else takes over. It's more instinctual then. And, like I said, I hold my guys accountable for 3 things: and working hard, being in good positions, and, their mentality, being positive and resilient. And so most of my coaching is dealt in those 3 things. And, in game, a lot of it is positional based. And so we're super proactive with the way that we approach the game. I'm super proactive with my coaching. Very rarely is it reactive notes. And so, for me, it's just a small way that I can still, be a part of it. I love it.
Do you take part in the 5-a-sides, Jamie? Do you have a kick around?
Yeah, I try to always build myself in as a neutral so I don't have to defend, though.
No checking back, no recovery runs for you, Jamie, right?
No, I didn't. Probably that's why I didn't make it as a pro either, but that doesn't mean I still can't do it at 30-something years old.
What's how would you categorize yourself as your coaching style? What sort of there's many. What do you look at? Are you super flexible right across the board?
No, I'm not. Anybody that would ever, I'm not flexible.
That's honesty. That's great. I know where I'm coming from in that dressing room, mate.
Just high demand, high accountability, and your ability to to bring your best every day. And if every day you're trying hard, you're putting yourself in good spots, and you have a good mentality, that you can always be serviceable to the team, and you can always be serviceable to the culture. And so I think I'm high demand, high accountability, but ultimately, I'm a player's coach. The best teams that I've coached are the ones that kind of run themselves, and I get out of the way.
You have a production line in your program, and have done for several years. Do you just want to touch on a few of those players? They're all special. I get that. Do you just want to touch on, Jamie, and share with our followers and our viewers some of the players that have progressed on from college into that higher level, that next level that everybody talks about, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, we've had 5 first-round draft picks in the past 3 or 4 years, and all those guys are coming from a belief that they're just trying to be at their best every day, and they're nowhere close to their potential, and so they're just lifelong learners. And I think when they get in the locker room, and I think when you get into a pro locker room, just understanding where you fit in that locker room and what your job is as a rookie or a first or second year guy is important. And so Sam Hamilton, under his leadership for my first 2 years, we were 49-2. And then, now he's playing down at, New Mexico after being drafted in the first round for the Rapids. He's just like an everyday player. And, for me, I was really proud of his progression, his development. Sure. Because I think it was one of those things that I don't even think he realized, how impactful he could be. And, between all the guys that have gone pro, obviously, Andre Shinyashiki wins the MLS Rookie of the Year last season. I think he absolutely gets hosed when he doesn't win. The Herman, you score 28 goals in a season, you have 14 game winners or whatever it was, 11 game winners, and he doesn't win that trophy. Maybe it was better for him because he got in the MLS season pretty hungry. And, I think the one thing that we made him, and I think if you ever ask him, he'll contest to this, is just like, we made him a total footballer. We learned how to make him fitter, stronger, eat better, how to play on all sides of, the ball, the attacking, the defending, and the transitions in between those two moments. And, just how to make more actions per minute. And I think for him, his natural skill set is scoring goals. He's just a killer like that, and that's what makes him special. But if he can impact the game, 30, 40 more times, throughout the 90 minutes just by, working hard and putting himself in good spots, he's just going to have that much more impact in a game. And so, a guy like Graham Smith, he's a center back for Sporting Kansas City, local Colorado kid. I thought he was extremely overlooked in the process. I don't think he got any love in the ratings or, whoever's rating the college soccer players. But we knew that Sporting Kansas City had a good indication of what we do here and our culture and the pipeline that we're doing. And we kind of knew that they were going to, draft Graham. And when they got him in the first round and people were like, whoa, Graham Smith. And there's absolutely zero surprise that he's contributing. He's the fittest guy on the team. He's tall, he's powerful. So, each of the guys at pro that I had they're just all different. And, I think they all add a different element to the team because of their personality and because of their leadership style. And I think that's what I take the most pride in.
I know you're going to, and rightly so, it's a collective with your coaching staff, right through, right down to the tea lady, as I would say, that make your program successful. Keyword successful. What personally, when you see those players that you've just mentioned, just go out there and play. What do you feel personally for that? What gives you the greatest joy for their success?
I just think about all the moments that they had where they doubted themselves, where they maybe didn't think they were good enough. And I just think about the times that I had that in my career and I used football to better myself or challenge myself or to view a failure as an opportunity. And I'm just proud of those guys because I know that they're really authentic people. And I know that they're really trying to do good in this world. And, I know it's on a soccer field, but you can feel their energy. And, I just believe in those guys. And so what I feel the most for them is just, happiness that they've kind of pushed themselves out of their comfort zone and, sort of found this success. But if you ask any of those guys, they're hungry for more. They feel that, they're always trying to get better and always try to grow.
You set the foundations for them with your program anyway, Jamie. As a player, and you've touched on it briefly, what did you bring immediately when you started with the Pioneers from your playing experience under one big umbrella? Obviously, coaching side. What did you bring as a player into that dressing room?
Yeah, I think, when I went to go get the Denver job, the players actually had wrote a letter for me, all of them, to for me to get the head coaching job at 28, and I I felt that there was just this idea, and I think it's getting worse in our culture, and I think it's something that people really need to address, is this sense of entitlement, where like the kids come in and they think that they're owed something. And as an assistant, I think the conversations that I could have with the players is obviously a little different as than a head coach.
Right.
But I think I was just allowed them to, you're entitled to absolutely nothing. You have an unbelievable experience in front of you, and whether you play 5 minutes, no minutes, or 90 minutes, you're expected to bring your best. And I think that sort of high demand and high accountability I brought from the number one guy on the roster all the way down to the bottom guy on the roster. Because if we're doing things the right way, the guys that are in the bottom end of the roster the next year, they shouldn't be in the bottom end of the roster. And in 2 years, those bottom end guys should be helping you. And so we view everybody different. There's no single players that are the same personality wise, playing wise. And so everybody on our roster, I just felt we asked more from them, and asked them to complete their role and define their role a little bit more clear.
Sure. Did you? What position did you play, Jamie, when you was playing?
Like an 8 or number 10, like a midfielder. I think I moved up a little bit higher up the field as time went on, and then when I went to college, we just had such a dominant team that I was asked to be more of a possession player, and so. Throughout my whole youth career, I kind of moved around a bunch, but I would, mostly consider myself a midfielder.
Talking of positions, would you recommend the younger players to play in as many positions to gain that experience? And I'm talking maybe that 13, 14, 15-year-old, as a player.
I do. I think obviously, if you have a very, very good skill set as a center back or a center forward or a certain position in itself, then yeah, I think it's important to obviously lock into that position. But I do think a lot of the other positions, teach you, the difference about scanning. Scanning's like a big word I think that everybody uses, but for us,
Sure.
Scanning is just knowing where the space, the ball, your teammate and opponent is. And I think when you're in different positions, I think that the depths of the spacing and the timing of things, it changes drastically. And so your decision-making process is, a little bit different. And I think for players that have more, utility use, the modern game is moving closer to, switching formations more often. And so it's probably going to give yourself, more opportunity to play.
Sure, absolutely. What's the program look like over the next 6 to 8 months, Jamie, for the Pioneers?
Yeah, just getting them back on campus and making sure the health and the student athletes or the health and the safety of the student athletes is number one priority, and just really getting going for the season. We have a bunch of tough games on the road this year, and for us, we had no seniors last season, and it was a little bit of a rebuilding year for us, but. We got humbled, and I think you can approach those failures in one of two ways. You can approach them head on and really reflect about where we came up short, where I came up short as a staff, and where the players came up short. And so I'm just super excited. I'm really proud of the guys. The way the past 6-7 months is gone, and we know that we've got about 6 or 7 weeks to really get ourselves prepared for preseason. So. There's a large ownership on the players to make sure that they're doing what they need to do at home.
Right.
But that's why I feel so good about the season. I feel so good about the season because I think I have everyday hardworking guys, and they're not shying away from the work that's in front of them right now.
That's I can see that, and just looking back on your stats, Jamie, which are phenomenal. I could actually say that word, Jamie, phenomenal. I'm going to say it again just to prove it. You've not had an easy ride in terms of teams that you've had to play from, different conferences, etc., playoffs. Do you look at that as an incentive and give that to your players as well? Because it's certainly not come easy to your roster in any qualifying.
I would mostly say that, we've been in that tournament, and I've been in that tournament a couple times as a, player and a coach, undefeated or pretty close to it. And that doesn't win you 6 knockout matches. At the end
No.
of the season, you have to have luck. And, a lot of the teams that win, they normally advance once or twice on penos. They
Yeah.
come back, or they get outplayed and they, have a big win on the road or whatnot. And, so for us, we're just trying to test ourselves and just find out where we're at throughout the season and just constantly grow and get better. In knockout football games, you just need to, survive and advance. And so for us, getting on the road and playing those opponents is really important for us, because our road to win a national championship has to go through some of those areas. And so the more exposure that we can get, the better. And I think that when you're 70, whatever the record is, when you're 70-3 at home or 70-5 at home, you're just not going to get many home games. Nobody wants to come and play us at here because we're hard to play against. And it's unfortunate, but this coming season we have Seattle, Stanford, and Gonzaga coming in at a conference, and so we're excited about that. But I think there is a real challenge being at Denver and having to play some of these games on the road, because momentum's tough, the travel's tough, and it's just it makes it for a more difficult environment to get a result in.
Yeah, Jamie, you have an excellent program. Obvious. I'd like to come down and take in a few games. If you can get me a shirt or a couple of tickets, that would be appreciated.
I can get you a shirt, I can get you a scarf, maybe a hat.
Yeah. Fantastic stadium down there, fantastic facilities, great support. I can only say what you've done in your period of time with the Pioneers, both as an assistant with excellent crew, and you mentioned Chad and Jeff, and now as head coach is absolutely magnificent. Production line, attitude, ethics, philosophy. You've really set the foundations and creating a bit of a legacy already at your tender age. I want to thank you on behalf of Sport in Denver for sharing a little bit of time. I know you're super busy, but I can't let you go without doing a quick five questions at you, mate. So,
sure.
Double-edged sword, this one. What boots did you wear when you were playing, Jamie?
Predators.
And what about coaching?
Anything that's leather and not colorful.
Right. Yeah. Straight black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I won't see you out there in bright orange or anything, mate. No.
Never.
Okay.
Never.
What team do you support, mate?
Barcelona and Bayern Munich. When I went over, I was 12 years old. I was fortunate to travel with some of our U.S. youth teams, and I saw the Barcelona Academy and I saw Bayern Munich's Academy, in and around the World Cup. And it was amazing to me. And to watch their philosophy from U8 all the way up to the first team, just really drew me in. And so, I'm not really that interested in the bigger clubs that just buy players. Obviously those clubs do that, but they build from the bottom and they build from their base, and they really believe in developing the person first.
That's a brilliant answer to my second question, which will lead into my third question. Building from the base. So I've got to eliminate Barcelona and Bayern Munich. If you could take a job in terms of under 23 developmental for a professional club, which one do you think would appeal to you without walking straight into, the Garden of Eden? What would you like to take?
You mean just in an MLS club or any club in general?
Anything you like, Jamie.
Just one that believed in the same methodology, that you develop the person first, and that the main goal of the organization is to leave it better and to make it bigger than anybody else. And I think when you can do that, that's when the best the culture really is the one that develops the individual. And I think that's when you have some special things happen, when the players really believe that it's theirs, and that they take ownership of holding standards and demanding excellence.
So the club, without naming any, we don't have to, would be that club that would believe in that set program of developing those players entirely to get them, or as many as you can, into that first team. That would have, well, you're doing that already, basically, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think we just play a small part. I mean, our relationship with the Rapids is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They're drafting our guys. Our guys always go into training with them. They're always at our games. They're always watching film for us. We're just a part of a stepping stone in a larger pyramid here in Colorado, and we know our place. And so, a guy like Cole Bassett was committed to us for 3 years, and we
Sure.
felt like we had a great relationship with him. But when Porrig calls and says that they think that they want to sign with the first team, we're all on board for that. And for me, it's about having the right resources in place, without sort of sports psychology work, without sort of leadership development, without the facilities, it is more challenging. And so as these MLS teams really start to figure out, what is their model for winning, I think they're going to start to make decisions, where does the youth academy sit and all that. And I think if you look at the way the money goes in and the spending from the owners, you can see which MLS teams care about their academies and,
Sure.
which ones are really bought in. And so for me, it's just, being a place, that your values align.
If you didn't coach soccer, you are a coach. What sport would you coach, mate? What would take your fancy?
It's always been football. It's always been soccer, and I excelled at baseball when I was at a young age, and my dad played it, and it was more his natural sport. But my brothers played it, but it just wasn't enough action for me, and there just wasn't enough decision making. What I love about soccer is that you're making 4 actions every minute. You're making so many decisions with every step of your cleat, and so. Soccer's always been such a big passion of mine, is that, I can't even imagine playing another sport, mostly because I'm not very good at any other sport, but
soccer. So there's no other sport. That's what we're going for. No problem. And the last one before I let you go, Jamie, what's your favourite food, mate?
Oh, I would have to say Italian. Just my mom growing up and cooking. I grew up with 3 different. I grew up with 3 brothers and tons of cousins and uncles and aunts, and so when they came over, the food was stocked in piles and Italian food, and so I've just always grew up with a love for it.
So anytime, any place, anywhere, putting a bit of pasta and some sauce or whatever in front of you, and you're good to go, mate.
Yeah, rather simple, man.
Okay. Hey, Jamie, thank you very, very much for joining us. Greatly appreciated. Thankfully, the rain held off there behind you. Still want to remain friends, but I was told to mention that we're going to talk to the coach at the Buffaloes next week, apparently. So that'll be Danny. And I know you're good friends. Danny's not promised me a shirt or a ticket to the game, so I'm going to be working on that one, Jamie. But thank you.
Well, hopefully you can use mine as leverage,
Get a free pass. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, hey, thanks again for having me.
Jamie, can you leave our followers with just one message? I'm going to sign off, but if you leave our followers and supporters with a message, once again, Jamie, cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, thanks for having me. We feel so fortunate to just be a part of the community here in Colorado for youth soccer. So many of our players are youth soccer from Colorado, and anybody who's never been out to a game, please come support us. The student athletes are awesome. They're unbelievable people, and they work so hard in the classroom, socially, and on the field. I think you'd be extremely proud of their effort on the game. And so we hope to see you out here at the University of Denver, and go Pioneers.